Where should we be placing EV chargers? In car parks, shopping centres, on the street, and so on. So the answer to this is not as simple as when I first thought of it. Where do we put EV chargers? And it does come down to which country you live in, because my initial thought was just for Australia. Then I thought maybe that'll apply to North America. Then I started to think, well, it won't apply to Europe and Britain. So, a couple of things here. EV chargers in shopping centres, shopping malls, or whatever you want. Now, these are usually free, not always, and they're also mostly destination chargers. So a lot of shopping centres have got EV chargers installed, and it was where they were placed in the shopping centre car park that got me thinking about this. Just about every shopping centre I've been to has got an EV charger right by the bloody entrance door, and they're frequently being iced. So that's a petrol or diesel car parked in that spot, or an EV not charging but parked there because it's handy and it's an EV spot. Ugh. No, it's not. It's an EV charging spot, people. So I was talking to a shopping centre manager a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the location of where he's going to put some more chargers, and he's actually going to be putting them out away from the entrance, or one of the entrances. And I go, thank goodness, somebody with a bit of sense. Now, personally, I don't mind walking that little bit extra where I can park my car, plug it in, walk. Maybe I'm a bit of a strange fellow there. You know, it's not all that hard. I know a lot of people will disagree with that. Write a comment below if you think that EV chargers should be right by the entrance, or would you be okay with them being further away? Now, normally you've got your disabled bays right by the centre, and I've seen cars and utes, work utes, pull up, guy jumps out and runs in. It's because it's right by the entrance, and he doesn't give two shits whether it's a disabled bay or not. Now, there is a big fine attached to that. It's usually about $1,000. Probably not enough of a disincentive. But, you know, that's shopping centres. That's all very well and good. But what about the rest of the world? In Australia, most of the people tend to live in houses and have what's called a carport or a garage. That's just the way things have developed in Australia. But nowadays the tendency is for more and more apartment buildings, and they've got an underground car park, gated, and a lot of them just refuse to put in chargers. I think this is also a similar case in the United States, where a lot of apartment people or people living in houses that don't have a garage, certainly in Europe and Britain, many houses do not even have a garage, and they have to park out on the street. So for those people, owning an EV is a bit more of a hassle. So where do we place EV chargers to suit these people? Just over 2 years ago, a team at MIT did a study on just this problem. And to quote, "It is critical to look at high impact approaches rather than haphazardly putting a charger at the grocery store or at the mall or any other public location." And that was from Jessica Trancic, who was an associate professor of energy studies at MIT. Sounds good, doesn't it? So what they were basically saying is public planning should be aimed at expanding the accessibility towards the greater population that don't have accessible charging or even a plug at home that they can plug it into. So these people developed a methodology for identifying charging solutions and they use GPS tracking and all sorts of things. And they really think that planners need to start thinking rather than just chucking out chargers. Oh, look how good we are. Here's a charger. Absolutely bloody useless position, but still. So governments, certainly in Australia, are currently putting in fast DC chargers. And they're spacing them out at about 150 to 200 kilometres or thereabouts. And these are in long range routes. So if you want to go across Australia, across the bottom, there should be a DC charger every 150 to 200 k's. Certainly up and down the east coast of Australia, there's a heap of Tesla superchargers, but not everybody has got a Tesla. So in order to cover large distances quickly, we need fast DC chargers, and we need them placed along the routes. Now, I do know that some petrol stations are putting in fast DC chargers. I say fast, 50 to 75 kilowatts. I think one or two might even be 150. So, Ampol or Amp Charger One doing that. In my travels around Scandinavia, where I have been, I'm currently in Germany, I've seen a lot of petrol stations with chargers. And in Scandinavia, the big one that I've seen is Circle K. Now that chain of petrol stations, some of them have got massive numbers of chargers. I mean, massive numbers. It's just ridiculous. I think they've got more chargers in one spot than we've got in the whole of Western Australia. So a lot of these things are very much local to the local environment. So as I said, in Australia, most people can charge at home. It's only when you go on a long journey. But in Europe, Britain and so on, that's not really the case. So when it comes to chargers for the street parking, there's a couple of excellent new inventions, if I can call them that. There's one, putting in a power EV charging point in a street light at the base. And they're spaced every so often, so you can stick one or two there. And because they're at the edge of the road by the car, that makes obvious sense. There's also an idea of just having a charger by the parking thing, by the side of the road. There are some even that sink down, and when you come and scan the QR code and say activate, it comes out of the ground and you can plug it in. Look, around Scandinavia, I've just seen ordinary poles stuck in the ground with a charger on it, and it's got two AC chargers. Now, I'm assuming that they're 11 kilowatts each. They may only be 7. I couldn't find out. But even so, you've got one pole, 2 parking spots. One pole, another 2 parking spots. What a great idea. And also in car parks, there are huge numbers of chargers, and they all look like destination chargers in car parks. There are some DC fast chargers around the spot, but they're in the minority. A lot of these are AC destination type chargers. And there's no reason why we can't do that all around the world, not just in Scandinavia. So what do you think about the placement of EV chargers? Let me know in the comments below. Where would you like to see EV chargers? I mean, I've had meetings with one of our ministers, and we can write to our councils. I've had a meeting with one of the council people, about why don't we make it the law that apartment buildings have got to have EV chargers in their car park? What's wrong with that? Why can't we have chargers placed in car parks? More and more and more. I'm sure it will come, but this is a case of the chicken and the egg. Do we get the chicken first, or do we get the egg first? Do we get the EVs and then the chargers, or do we get the chargers and then the EVs? Personally, I think we've got to have the chargers first to get the EV take-up. Now, this is coming from someone who's had an EV for, cripes, 4.5, 5 years now. And back then, there weren't too many chargers. You couldn't go very far. So, yeah, what do you think? Let me know. I hope you found that thought-provoking. And please, do me a favour. Click that like and subscribe below. Really make me feel very happy. Thanks so much. And I'll see you all very soon.